Remember when social media wasn't a dumpster fire? Back in the day, it was all about connecting with friends and family, seeing what your high school buddies were up to, sharing memes that you hoped would go viral, and debating life's biggest mysteries, like whether that dress was actually blue or gold. Or, let's be honest, falling down rabbit holes like decoding what the fox says or perfecting your baby shark dance moves. But today, we still get the memes, we still get the drama, hello celebrity gossip, and we still see Mudang avoiding a bath at all costs. But now, we're also buried under a mountain of crypto scams, dangerous health misinformation, and random influencers trying to convince us Tide Pods? No, we're not eating these. Please don't do it. So, it's no wonder that policymakers around the world are scrambling to regulate these platforms. But here's the thing. Most lawmakers aren't engineers or data scientists. They don't always understand how these algorithms work or why we keep getting served that weird clickbaity content that just makes no sense. That's where we come in. A group of us engineers, researchers, and social media geeks got together as part of the expert working group on recommender systems at the Knight-Georgetown Institute. Over months of nerding out, we wrote a detailed report on how these recommendation systems work, why they can go off the rails, and how we can fix them so they actually benefit users and society. Now, I know reading that report sounds like homework. I get it. We all love a video of a dog with the zoomies more than a dense academic paper, so I'm here to break it all down in a way that actually makes sense. In this video, I'll cover how recommender systems really work. Spoiler, it's not magic. Why toxic content gets pushed to the top of your feed. Yes, it is part of why your uncle keeps sending you those conspiracy theories, and evidence-based ways to fix these systems so you see more of what you actually want to see, instead of random nonsense. I've included chapter markers in the description, so if you need to jump ahead or rewatch your favorite part, go right ahead. And if you have any burning questions, drop them in the comments below. I'll answer them and might even make a video in response. And trust me, if you have any questions, I'm confident they're way less toxic than the advice some of these platforms are feeding us. All right, let's dive in. In the early days, social media felt like a digital hangout. You'd catch up with friends, share a few memes, maybe watch a cat fail spectacularly at jumping into a box. But as the platforms grew and the content exploded, they couldn't just show you everything in chronological order anymore. That's when they started using recommender systems. Algorithms designed to figure out what you might want to see out of the billions of posts uploaded every day. In theory, super helpful. In practice, well, maybe not so much. These algorithms don't always show you what's meaningful or helpful or desirable. They show you what keeps you scrolling, even if it's false, toxic, or just plain weird. These recommendation systems might seem like magic, but they're really just math, models, and a lot of code. I used to build them at Facebook and Instagram, so trust me when I say, they're powerful, but far from perfect. Let me show you how they actually work, without melting your brain. Unless you want that, in which case, I'll make a separate video just for you. Again, recommender systems are the complex algorithms behind the feeds we all scroll through every day. What's less familiar is how they actually work. I could go into excruciating detail, but I'll spare you in this video, as long as you like this video and subscribe to my channel. I'm planning to create a separate video that goes into more excruciating details later, but that's for another day. For now, imagine a busy airport with tens of thousands of people arriving each day. That's like the billions of posts uploaded across platforms daily. To keep things running smoothly and safely, everyone has to go through security. These checkpoints quickly scan travelers' IDs and whether they are carrying any prohibited items. Similarly, the first stage of a recommender system acts as a filter. It scans all incoming posts to make sure they meet platform standards and tries to catch anything dangerous, illegal, or clearly against the rules. It doesn't catch everything, but it's a start. Next, just like passengers heading to different gates, content gets routed to different users. Most posts aren't relevant to most people, so they quietly exit here, never boarding the plane, never showing up in your feed. But for the posts that do make it through, that's where the ranking begins. Think of this step like assigning seats on a flight. Not everyone gets first class. The algorithm scores each post based on how valuable or worthwhile it thinks it will be to a user. But what makes these recommendation systems think something is valuable to a user? This depends heavily on the platform and its business model. I'll go more into that in a moment. For now, just know that each post gets a score. Then they're sorted in descending order. The highest scoring content, that is the stuff the system thinks you'll engage with most, rises to the top. But that's not the end. After this initial ranking, there's often a second pass. This phase helps the platform meet other goals, like making your feed feel more balanced. Maybe it doesn't want to show you 5 news articles in a row, even if they all scored highly. So it reshuffles things a bit. One news post, a meme, a cute dog video, your friend's vacation pictures, you get the idea. The final list, after this re-ranking, is what actually shows up in your feed. So that's the high-level overview of how these systems work. But you might be wondering, what exactly counts as valuable or worthwhile? Well, often it's whatever keeps you clicking, scrolling, or watching. Because for most platforms, value means money. And more user engagement means more ads viewed and more money made. So what is engagement exactly? In plain terms, engagement is just what you do on the platform. Clicking, liking, commenting, sharing, watching, or say, subscribing to my channel to support this content. Platforms love these metrics. Why? Because they're measurable and they tie directly to revenue. The more you engage, the more ads you see, and every ad view maps to dollars. Engagement data is also abundant. That gives platforms a massive data set to train predictive models. These models try to guess, what are you most likely to click on next? What video will you watch? What posts will you share? These predictions feed right back into the ranking system, influencing what you see and in what order. But here's the problem. Imagine you're at a party. There's a bowl of potato chips in front of you. You casually start snacking, and before you know it, you've inhaled the entire bowl. Would your host be right to assume you love chips and want more? Maybe. Maybe you do want more. Or maybe you're silently hoping they'll take the bowl away before you completely lose control. Or maybe you'd prefer they swap it out for something healthier, like veggies, or literally anything else. The point is, your behavior, eating chips, doesn't necessarily match your preference, not wanting to eat all of the chips. And your host may misinterpret that behavior and keep feeding you more chips. That's exactly what happens on many platforms. They assume if you engaged with it, you must want more of it. If you've ever clicked on a Shrimp Jesus meme and suddenly found your feed flooded with AI-generated slop, this is why. And that might be fine if we were mostly drawn to helpful, uplifting, or accurate content. But we're not. We're often more likely to click on the outrageous, the enraging, or the flat-out ridiculous. That doesn't mean we want more of it, but to the algorithm, high engagement equals high value. So it keeps refilling the bowl with more Shrimp Jesuses, Jesus, misinformation, toxicity, and dangerous challenges. Extensive research shows that people disproportionately engage with more harmful content, so the platforms feed them more and more harmful content. Even Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg admitted this tendency in his blueprint for content governance and enforcement when he said, "Our research suggests that no matter where we draw the lines for what content is allowed, as a piece of content gets close to that line, people engage with it more on average, even when they tell us afterwards they don't like the content." Interestingly, our research has found that this natural pattern of borderline content getting more engagement applies not only to news, but to almost every category of content. Independent external research also confirms this tendency. For example, Northwestern University professor William Brady and Princeton University professor Molly Crockett found that content containing misinformation is much more likely to outrage users, and outrage drives them to engage with that content. When people see these outraging, untrue posts, some will respond by saying how much they love it. Others may respond by challenging it. Many will react with anger. Many will reshare it. So, much like the host of the party interprets our eating all of the chips as a signal that we like the chips and want more of them, these engagement-based algorithms interpret our engagement with that post as a signal that we want more misinformative and outraging posts just like it. And the cycle of being bombarded with more and more potato chips than we ever wanted continues. This cycle is frustrating and is a bad user experience. So, why don't platforms do more to reduce these bad experiences? Well, part of the problem is that platforms tend to evaluate their product changes using A/B experiments over the course of 1 or 2 weeks. If Zuckerberg and the volumes of research out there are correct in that problematic content gets more engagement than other content, then any product change that recommends less of this unwanted content to users will almost necessarily decrease the amount of time people spend on the platform over the week or 2 of that experiment. Now, time spent on the platform translates to revenue for the platform. Therefore, a tension emerges between giving users better experiences over the long term and making more money in the short term. The company can keep recommending the annoying, harmful content to people who say they don't want to see it and make more money, or they could improve the user experience, even if it means having worse financials to report in the fiscal quarter. Now, in competitive capitalistic systems, companies tend to make decisions based on maximizing profit, at least in the short term. Sometimes I think of this as akin to shopping at a large discount store that has everything I could want and is cheaper than other stores. Most people don't want to have to shop at many different stores or websites to get everything that they want because that takes more time. The fact that the one-stop shop is also cheaper sweetens the pie. But those stores might be so large that it's annoying or hard to find exactly what we want. Maybe some of the food is past its expiration date, and maybe the reviews people leave on the products at that store are not trustworthy. If it's the only shop in town, though, it's hard to disengage and start shopping elsewhere. So I keep shopping there, even though I don't like doing so, and I'll switch if another store opens and promises better experiences. This may be why most of the big social media platforms have experienced declining numbers of users in some markets in the past couple of years. After big tech companies laid off tens of thousands of people who worked on creating better experiences for users and combating harmful content, those bad experiences continued to mount. In the longitudinal survey of US adults that I've been overseeing out of the University of Southern California's Neely Center for the past 2 years, we found declining user numbers for X or Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Pinterest. The only platform exhibiting greater use among US adults was Reddit. Notably, despite a law banning TikTok in the US, the platform's user numbers have held steady. The survey isn't able to tell us what is causing the changes in use because it's not an experiment, and we know that correlation is not causation. Fortunately, though, some of these social media platforms have actually run long-term experiments that help us figure out cause and effect, not just correlation. Remember from earlier when I said that all content eligible to be viewed on a platform is ranked by a score? Well, different algorithms can score the exact same content very differently. For example, one common algorithm is engagement-based. Think of it as like a Vegas bookie, betting on which content you'll click or comment on, watch, or share, because the bookie knows people engage more with misinformation, outrage, and problematic content. The bookie bets on that content and shows more of it to users. So if this is the algorithm driving a platform's feed, the feed will contain more harmful content because it tends to pay out in terms of engagement. In contrast, some alternative algorithms are less like bookies and more like casino pit bosses. They don't just look at what's flashy or exciting at the moment, they're also watching for trustworthiness, the players who are legitimate, not hustlers trying to cheat the system. In feed terms, that means rewarding content from credible sources and penalizing the stuff users consistently say they don't want. Most platforms don't rely on just one approach. Instead, they mix signals of engagement and signals of quality. But to really understand how these choices play out, companies sometimes run what are called holdout experiments. One type of holdout strips away protections altogether. Imagine a casino with no pit bosses, no security, no rules. Anyone can sit at any table, even card sharks and cheaters. Feeds in this condition end up full of harmful or low-quality content. So researchers running these long-term holdout experiments surreptitiously randomly assign users to different algorithms driving their feeds. One group of users may have their feed switched to be more like the pit boss, where safety and trustworthiness are prioritized. Another group of users may continue with the feed run by the Bookie, where engagement is prioritized. And an unfortunate group of users may have their feed's pit boss removed, where most protections against cheating and harms are stripped away. Importantly, these users don't know which algorithm is driving their feed. This way, the experiments reduce what researchers call demand effects. In other words, by running experiments on users' feeds without telling them, those users are less likely to act differently because they know they are being studied. And here's another key. Many of these experiments aren't just run for a week or two, like the normal A/B test that platforms use to decide whether to launch a new feature. They run for months, even years. What do these experiments find? Well, much like shopping at a discount warehouse store that seems convenient at first, but gradually drives you away with bad produce, expired items, and sketchy reviews, users without algorithmic protections eventually disengaged and stopped using the platform. That attrition didn't show up in short-term experiments. It only appeared months down the line. So what happens if you actually give people the pit boss treatment? A cleaner, more trustworthy feed instead of the Wild West of outrage and clickbait. At first, it looked bad, like we broke the site bad. Christos Goodrow, the VP of engineering at YouTube, stated that when they first began demoting borderline content, watch time on that content dropped by 70%. 70%. Yikes, right? But here's the twist. Over the long run, engagement actually went up. People had better experiences on the platform and ended up spending more time there overall. And this isn't just a YouTube thing. In Broken Code, Inside Facebook and the Fight to Expose Its Harmful Secrets, Jeff Horowitz describes a longitudinal experiment at Facebook. Users were randomly assigned to 3 different versions of the algorithm. One that actively demoted harmful content, the standard algorithm most people had, or one with the bare minimum of protections. Basically, the algorithmic equivalent of a gas station bathroom at 2 a.m. It's technically functional, but you really don't want to be there. After about a year, guess who liked their feed the most? Turns out, users with the cleaner feeds ended up using Facebook more, especially younger people, and people who weren't frequent users at the outset of the study. Pinterest and Twitter ran similar experiments and got the same results. Cleaner feeds equal happier users. Shocking. I know. Apparently, people prefer platforms that don't make them feel like they're wandering through a hoarder's garage of conspiracy theories, rage bait, and digital junk food. They'd rather have something closer to the curated feed overseen by the pit boss. And this isn't just good for users, it's good business. More time on the platform means more data, more ad revenue, and happier users who are more likely to stick around. It's a win-win. So one of the recommendations our working group at the Knight-Georgetown Institute proposes is to stop measuring algorithmic success with short-term engagement metrics. It's like judging a fitness program based on how sore you are the day after your very first workout, rather than whether you're stronger or fitter 6 months from now. Instead, platforms should run long-term holdout experiments, because some changes take time to ripple through a network and shift social norms. In tandem, we also recommend optimizing recommendation systems for long-term user value, not just short-term clicks. Let's talk about this better goal, long-term user value. We define this as content and experiences that align with your deliberate, forward-looking goals, not just your impulsive clicks. There are many ways to estimate what people really value. The most obvious? Just ask. What do users want more of in their feeds? Why are they on the platform in the first place? Are they there to learn a new dance move? To stay informed? To stay connected with friends and family across the country? People's goals vary a lot, and platforms can use those goals to personalize in a way that actually serves the user. Now, some engagement signals can still be useful, but not all engagement is created equally. Likes and quick comments, those can be impulsive and performative. But signals like watch time or repeat visits might reflect deeper interest, more effort, more intention. That's the kind of engagement we should pay more attention to. A number of alternatives to engagement-based ranking have been proposed and tested. Let's walk through a few. The most well known is the chronological feed. This sounds appealing. Show everything in order. No manipulation, right? But users don't love them in practice. When given the choice, most people switch back to engagement-based feeds. Why? Because chronological feeds prioritize frequent posters, not your friends or the content you care about. That often means seeing more from brands and spam accounts, and less from the people who matter most. Ironically, this simpler feed can actually feel less relevant. Another option is non-personalized feeds, showing content that's popular with everyone, or most people. But that ends up feeling really random, like channel surfing through content that's technically viral, but not for you. Users overwhelmingly prefer feeds tailored to their specific interest. Just look at TikTok's For You page. It's hyper-personalized and people love it, sometimes too much. Our expert working group identified several promising alternatives that aim for a healthier, more user-aligned experience. First, bridging-based algorithms. These systems prioritize content that resonates across diverse groups, like country music fans and hip-hop music fans, or people from country A and people from country B, liberals and conservatives, etc. If people divided in some way broadly agree with one another, the argument, data, or content that they are agreeing on is likely to be more meritorious than if these divided groups disagree on that content. It's not about watering things down. It's about rewarding content where there's broad agreement among users. X, or Twitter, for example, uses a bridging-based approach in its community notes program. In this example, one user was arguing that whales are not mammals. Yet, regardless of where in the world someone lives, what kind of music they like, or what their politics are, people understand that whales are in fact mammals. This approach has shown promise in identifying higher quality, more trustworthy, and less toxic content. Another option is survey-based models. Instead of guessing based on clicks, these systems literally just ask users, "Did you like this post? Do you want to see more posts like it?" Facebook, for example, shows occasional prompts asking just that. YouTube also occasionally asks users about their experiences, and if the user selects a negative option, YouTube will sometimes invite the user to update their preferences for what they would like to see more or less of. And these signals often do a better job predicting user satisfaction than likes or shares. Survey-based approaches can give users more control over what they see in their feeds by giving the company direct information about what users want and do not want in their feeds. And finally, quality-based systems. These are tricky though, as quality is quite subjective, but there are ways to estimate quality. For instance, if the content has a lot of grammar or spelling errors, it is more likely to be lower quality than content without such errors. If the content is medicine-related, it is likely to be higher quality if it's authored by someone with a medical degree or cites peer-reviewed medical journals. If the content is explaining how ranking and recommender systems work, it is likely to be more accurate if the creator spent years studying data science and working in the companies building these systems than if the creator is confused by the terms confusion matrix or normalized discounted cumulative gain. These are imperfect, but still useful steps towards surfacing more high-quality and trustworthy content. Each of these models deserves a deep dive, so if you want a full video on any of them, please let me know in the comments. Okay, I get it. That was a lot. Here's the TLDR. Recommendation systems decide what content you see. Most of them are driven by engagement, which often means the most outrageous, addictive, or divisive stuff floats to the top. That's not great for users or society. People often engage with content they don't even like. The algorithm sees the engagement and thinks, more of that, coming right up. That short-term loop can eventually lead to long-term burnout, mistrust, and user churn. The good news? We can do better. Alternatives like bridging-based, survey-based, and quality-based systems show real promise and could actually give people more of what they want, not just what they click on or react to. In the next video, I sit down with Xander Arneau, policy analyst and one of the co-authors of the Better Feeds report. We'll talk about the wave of new bills, lawsuits, and regulations aimed at social media, and how to design sensible, effective, and rights-respecting policies using everything we've just covered. If you learned something today, or if the algorithm served you a Shrimp Jesus meme one too many times, consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel. Or drop a question in the comments. I might even turn it into one of the next episodes. Thanks for watching, and remember, the chips might be tasty, but you deserve better snacks.